And so I had the super flu. Many people ask super flu A or B. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I said super flu C, and they seemed intrigued and concerned. Whilst I am unsure of the nature of the super flu C or A or B, I know what I was in pain. I was very much in pain, and it made me feel poor, not just personally, but how my body caused my mind to treat my family. Now, you may hear that and think, this guy is a pathological liar to himself. He just blamed his body and his mind and won't take ownership for how he treated his family. I would disagree. I feel bad. It's not just my family. It's pretty much everyone in my pathway. I had little to no energy to greet, to love, to care, or let me correct myself, to express what I believe would inform the other person that I love and care for them. Isn't that interesting how much in the mind we can get? Anyway, so December 22nd rolls around. I arise from my slumber. I feel poor, to say the least. So I work from home. I try to recover. It wasn't working, and I got frustrated at myself. And whilst being sick as well, I stopped eating, but I kept on trying to take ibuprofen. Well, that doesn't work that well together. Dayquil, NyQuil, that stopped working. I don't think it works. I'm just going to say it. I went to the CVS. I purchased it. It hasn't worked. Now, I want you to know I feel better now, but I don't think that was due to the Dayquil and NyQuil. I think that is a false product. And if I get arrested or sued for saying things such as this, I'll take it back because I don't have the money to pay for it. So I don't want to get sued. But this is just my opinion, my review, should I say, of Dayquil and NyQuil. It does not work. Well, I do the Christmas Eve services at Westside. That was all fun. I was ill during that. It didn't feel great, but the services themselves were fantastic, and it was exciting to see everybody. And take this, Jessica Bowie, one of my great friends in life, I got to see that day. And I had to apologize. I said, Jessie, I'm so sorry. I would normally hug you for 10 seconds around the neck, but I'm not feeling too hot, so I guess I'll hug you for 2 seconds around the neck. And it was devastating, but we did get a photograph together, and frankly, I haven't seen the photograph. It probably got deleted because of how low energy I looked in that photograph. But I hope they had a great Christmas, and I hope you had a great Christmas. Some of us were riddled with sickness throughout the Christmas and the beginning of New Year. Some of us were thriving. And I was thinking a little bit upon this past Christmas, and that is when I had the super flu. I was given multiple medications by my family while I was with them, and I appreciate them. But I'll tell you what, that medication, it caused me to feel incapacitated in the mind. I couldn't think straight. I was spacey. And I was drinking Dr. Pepper Zero like nobody's business. And I thank God for Grammy and Grumpy for those reasons. Not just those reasons, but that's one reason. They were stocked up. And I showed up on Christmas Eve to my sister's house, Molly, and I don't know if you know him, and you might not because, well, he hasn't been on this podcast in quite some time, but his name's Brett. And if you do know him, you know that he was an integral part of this podcast for a long, long time. And he was the reason we started this podcast. But I haven't seen him in a long time. And I get emotional just even talking about it now, so I need to stop. But I love him. Anyway, I show up at their house. Whew, you would have thought it was you would have thought that there was something wrong with me. And there was, to be quite frank. I believe Jackson, my brother, he made prime rib and a delicious gourmet Christmas Eve meal, which I had to decline and I did not eat because I just could not stomach it. And it wasn't even a vomiting type of stomaching. It was I cannot eat. I have no appetite. There's nothing in my body that desires food. I just want to kneel over, or I believe the word is keel over. I'm unsure. And rest for a very, very long time. The 2 nights beforehand, I got a whopping 2 hours of sleep combined. And I slept from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. on the 23rd of December and was awake since that time. Needless to say, I was tired, little energy, couldn't have an appetite, did not have an appetite, couldn't stomach food. It was not pretty. But you know what was beautiful? Was the love and affection my family showed for me whilst I was downtrodden. And downtrodden is an accurate word and descriptor. It wasn't a fun experience, but I was encouraged by my family, as I often am, and I often share with you all on the podcast, is they are some of the most loving people. My sister, she was immediate, you need to get better. I was like, I received that in Jesus' name. My mother, she said, you need to get better. I received that in Jesus' name. My father, just hopping me up with medicine left and right. Take this ibuprofen. Everybody's Advil, cough medicine, this homeopathic. There's some kind of crunchy type thing that melts in your mouth. I'm unsure of what it's called, but I believe it helped. Everybody. Can't thank them enough. And so part of this podcast, I want to take some time, just a few minutes, to shout some people out. All right, I already shouted out my sister Molly, my mother, my father, Jackson. There was a funny moment, at least I think it's funny looking back, but it's also of recall and to me about desperation and dependence. So at this point, it was Christmas morning, circa 2:32 a.m. Jackson and I, we were in upstairs den, and I was on a mattress on the floor, and Jackson was on the couch. I had been coughing for approximately 3.5 hours straight. And it wasn't a light cough, it was a deep cough, one from the depths of Hades himself or itself. And I had taken medicine, I had taken some extra hard medicine, and it failed at working. So I was coughing away. We were in the same room. Everybody else around us had white noise machines, so they were absolutely glonked out. I was trying to distract myself from the cough, so I was singing songs, "Oh Holy Night, Silent Night," just begging the Lord for reprieve and rest and restoration. Well, that did not come on Christmas night, and that's okay. That's okay. Sometimes the Lord answers our prayers with a big, hard, and fat no, and I receive that because I know that it's for the reason and purpose of making me more like Him. Well, around 2:32, I continue to cough. I look to my right. I'm lying down, and I see Jackson. He rises up a little bit, so I know he's awake. And what I'm thinking is, this guy, he thinks Santa has arrived, and he's ready to go open his presents. Well, I've coughed for about 12 more minutes or so, and around 2:35 p.m. or a.m., excuse me, I cry out in agony, "Jackson." No answer. "Jackson." No answer. "Jackson." "What?" he says. I share with him a request. The request is, could you please go to my backpack downstairs and get the Motrin? If you know anything about me, that is a hilarious request to come from me to Jackson. You just have to know our dynamic. It's a funny, interesting dynamic. This guy got up at 2:35 a.m., walked downstairs. I'm certain maybe he got a little chocolate from his stocking, brought Motrin and a cup of water. Again, it was bad. It was bad, but I'm thankful for Jackson. That was a special shout out that I needed to tell the people. And how I wanted to tie it to desperation and dependence is, I think oftentimes we get in our daily rhythms of life and we've established that, whether you have children, whether you don't, and your schedule and your calendar is dependent upon your rhythm. And your rhythm and how well your day is dependent upon how correct you followed your calendar, correct you followed what you need to accomplish in the day. And I think that's a great thing. But I think there are points where we need disruption and we need to ask the question, if I did not do this during this time on this day, what would my day be like? Are we so dependent upon the calendar we've set for ourselves that we claim fail whenever it doesn't happen or it does not go our way? I believe, for me, yes. You see, I was in a great rhythm, what I would categorize as a great rhythm. I felt healthy. I felt like I was exercising well. I felt like I was eating well. I felt like I had great relationships. But I needed the disruption. I needed to sit back and be forced to lie on my couch and actually see how my body is completely dependent upon the Lord. He gives us our daily bread, literally and metaphorically, and scripturally, spiritually. He provides, and I think, again, rhythms are a way that we can see His goodness, but the disruption and calls us back to complete dependence. So how do we live a life of dependence on the Lord? I don't want the answer to be I have to have the super flu every single time. And I don't think that is the answer. But I do believe we should evaluate our lives and check, are we dependent upon the Lord in every aspect of our lives? In our finances, in our time, in our calendar, what we commit our children to, what we commit ourselves to, what we do with our hands and our feet, where we go, how we treat others. That's all dependent upon the Lord. Who are you going to interact with on a daily basis? Who's going to be the coworker that sits next to you? You think for a second that the Lord didn't orchestrate that? Well, you're wrong, my friend. You're wrong. And I think that's encouraging for us as believers. Well, we arrived to Fort Worth December 25th. We fly on the great American Airlines, and Santa Claus bought my flights. And so I'm thankful. Shout out to Santa. I appreciate that. And Santa also bought me new sheets. Actually, correction, that was my parents. My parents got me new sheets, and I'm very much enjoying them. You know, fresh linens and fresh, really cotton as well is an absolute blessing. And it's one that we take for granted often. I don't want to take it for granted. I want to celebrate this, and that's what I'm doing. So receive that and be challenged by it, I pray. Onward. We get on our flights. Of course, it's not packed. So we have rows and rows to ourselves. So I take likely the back row. I was in the very back, aside from the flight attendants who were also sitting in rows because there was room. And so that was a little fun. I had a deep cough still, but I was getting better. Was able to take a 2-hour nap or so. We arrive in Fort Worth. Through a process and a series of fortunate events, we end up in a Jeep Grand Wagoneer, 5 miles on it. That was something worth celebrating. It was fun. And Molly and Brett and their 2 children, they arrive the next day, and we begin the festivities. So we eat breakfast at a place called Westside Cafe. That was delicious. And I'm telling you all this because I want you to know my attitude during that was all about me. It was, I am ill. I feel terrible. I don't want to do anything, or I want to do things, but I feel so bad. I feel pitiful. I'm trying to fight through it, but I feel like I'm failing. My family was quick to reassure me, you are not a failure. You are not ruining our Christmas. Yet there was something inside me that didn't believe it. And it was a lack of belief in myself. There's issues there, certainly. But I want to process them with you, obviously. All in all, of which to say, what do we do when we're with our family? How do we respond? How do we react? Are we filled with grace? And I think we have to be filled with grace with ourselves before we can be filled with grace for others. And I don't mean that selfishly. I mean, we tend to operate out of a perception of us versus a perception of others. So if we can't extend ourselves grace, how we treat others is going to be dependent upon how we think of ourselves. And I know, again, this is deep thinking, and it may not be fun, and it may sound like I'm talking in circles. I hope that I'm not. I hope I'm making sense. But if we can't deal with how we treat ourselves, there are going to be certain points that we are insecure in, that we will treat others poorly in. I'm not saying that's everything, and I'm not saying that's everybody, but I am saying that will flesh itself out in some areas. So I hope you've had a great Christmas. I wanted to share with you a short synopsis of my Christmas and New Year's with you. I miss you, to be quite frank, and I want to be more consistent. And that's one of the rhythms that was missing out of my lives, and the dependence back on the Lord. And it's pushing me to this podcast. And I celebrate that because I love doing it. I love talking to you, and I miss you. I want to hear from you. So if you have any thoughts, if you have any comments, if you have any words of advice that you'd like to give to your peers, but maybe you're afraid, you need to type it out, feel free to comment on this, and we'll celebrate it with you. This week, we had our 2nd and 3rd grade basketball practice, and the word was diligence, and I loved what we did with our devotion, and the illustration used is the illustration, think about this, is the dishwashing. The parable of the dishwasher is what I'll call it. And I don't mean the physical dishwasher that you put dishes in and you turn on with detergent. I'm calling us the dishwasher, the man and the woman, the dishwasher. And these are 2nd and 3rd graders, so I'd imagine there's chores. I had chores when I was young. I have chores today, but I had chores that was expectation of my parents. So what do we do with our dishes? Well, if your parents ask you to wash the dishes, in the child's mind, the goal is to get the task done, not necessarily to do it well. But you see 5 plates of dishes, you want to do the bare minimum to get them, air quotes, washed, the lowest bar of expectation, washed, and then on to the next. So you can be done, so you can go play with your toys. I think there's something much more deeper. And so the idea of being diligent in our work, and it's a team sport, so being diligent in our work and our ethic. And how do we wash dishes? Because the goal isn't necessarily to do the bare minimum of washing past because that is a goal oriented around ourselves. We want to accomplish the task because we want to get on to the next thing for ourselves. What if we reframe that? What if we reframed the goal of dishwashing? What if the goal of dishwashing was not for you? It wasn't to check that off the list and get done so you can go on to the next thing. What if it was to clear the plate, to fully wash the plate, set the next person up who uses that plate for success, a clean plate, one that they can be fueled by with food on their plate? Wouldn't that be wild? See, I think that is what the Lord invites us into when we really think about it. Not only is the Lord the ultimate dishwasher, and here's why, is He wipes our slate clean through the blood and sacrifice of Jesus and His resurrection. He, through His blood and through His promise, offers us new life. So we are the dirty dish that He washes. He creates completely clean and then uses it, hear me, uses it to put food on so that the foreigner meaning the non-believer, can partake and delight in the food and the provision of the Lord and see the provision of the Lord through this clean dish. How beautiful is that? I was encouraged by it, but I think I was also challenged by it because I haven't been doing enough dishwashing lately, and I haven't been a clean plate lately. How much of that is in my mind? How much of that is in practice? Do I know the theory is true? Absolutely. But am I willing to give up the control of my life, rely completely dependent on God to wash my plate, to wash me clean so that I can be a vessel for the Lord? Now, I'm not saying that the clean plate means sinless. Now, you cannot be sinless. What I am saying is through Jesus, Jesus is our intermediary to God. And when God sees us, our plate clean, He sees Jesus. He doesn't see the sinner. And so how can we celebrate that? We are not called to walk around, hey, look how fresh and clean I am. We are called to walk around and say, look who cleaned me. There's a big difference. And so I want to celebrate that, and I want to challenge you to live like that as I've challenged myself. And frankly, I believe the Lord placed it in my heart and mind to challenge myself with. So I wanted to share that with you. That was, at the time of this recording, that was this evening, and it's fresh on my mind. But just a couple days prior, we played Mando Bando, the Big Red Machine, also known as Connor Coleman, one of the great people in the world. And Josh Dixon and I, who is my assistant coach, and Coach Kurt McConnell, who is my other assistant coach, we beat them. Now, it was a great game. It was worth celebrating, and it was a lot of fun. But I appreciate the friendly competition of the second and third graders. I praise God to get to be a part of their lives in this small way. It's fruitful for me. I hope it's fruitful for them. And I hope this podcast is something that you enjoy. It's not a burden for you to listen to. And I can't wait to see you soon. And you would think that our claim that we love you deeply and generously is incorrect based on how we've treated you over the past few months. But I'm telling you that is false. We love you deeply and generously. And I don't know if we're going to see you in 7 days, if I'm being honest. I want to. I really do. But I don't want you to think that this means that I love you any less. Now, you could say there's serious grounds for counteracting that claim and going against that claim, and I receive that, and you're probably correct, is if you really love me, you would be there for me. I think that a certain part of that is true. And we've talked about this. What do we give our time to? We say we're so busy we can't do blah, 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 blah. Wrong. We've talked about this on the podcast. We make time for the things we want to make time for. And to be frank, through practice and through evidence, I have not prioritized you as much as I have prioritized other things. And I know that's going to hurt to hear, but I hope the honesty is real. That finally someone loves me deeply and generously enough to tell me the truth, that they don't love me deeply and generously enough to do it every single week like they used to. And part of me doesn't do it because I miss Brett. And every time I'm on here, I think of him. And I think of all the great times we had together, and I miss him. Again, I said I get emotional every time, and here it comes. So I need to stop. Anyway, my friend, and I mean this, if I can help you in any capacity accomplish some of your commitments and objectives, and you think I'd be valuable in accomplishing them, you need to let me know, because I will make an assessment of my time and availability to help you do this. And I love you deeply and generously. And I'll see you next time on the Quite Frankly podcast.